Welcome to A Mason's Work, the podcast where we review Masonic symbols and illustrate how they can be used to solve problems in everyday life. With your host, Brian Mattox, a proud member of the Craftsman Online Media Network.
I want you to think back on something. Maybe something you built as a kid. Clubhouse, a fort in the backyard, a pillow fort with your friends. A project that maybe you got pulled into at school. Any of these kind of things that really imply a building where you and maybe a group of your friends or a group of, fellow students or what have you got pulled into just the work and disappeared into it for an afternoon or an evening. And you only sort of came up for air when somebody called you for dinner or, the first person had to go home or what have you. Nobody gave you a workflow. There wasn't an agenda. There wasn't a Kanban board or any of those kinds of things. Yet stuff got done. The memories were forged. The experience was cemented as a permanent part of who you are. Draw your attention to the environment in that memory. Really look at it. The garage you were in, out in the woods, the patch of yard, or in the library that you may have met in as a student. You'll probably remember some of the details, and really that it wasn't necessarily the ideal place. Most of the work that you did in those environments was improvised, and you kind of went to the spaces where you needed to go to do the work. And none of that was really important because the work itself kind of consumed you. When you look at that memory, without knowing it, without a framework or a productivity system or any of that kind of stuff, what you really built or found was a minimum viable environment to do the work, the floor. The least that needed to be true for the work to start. You cleared just enough space. You gathered just enough material. You established just enough separation from the people around you or the environment. And then you stopped managing those conditions and started doing the work. And that's the concept I want to talk about today. Most of what gets written about environment and productivity is about the ceiling. It's about the optimal setup, the perfect desk, the right lighting, the right temperature, the ideal noise level. And all of that is fine. The ceilings are useful to pursue. But the ceiling itself is useless if you haven't found the floor. The minimum viable environment isn't necessarily about comfort. It's about removing as much friction as possible that prevents the work from starting. That's kind of all it needs to do. It needs to have three things: a clear surface or space, managed interruption, like a place where the outside world just can't kind of come in without some level of alert or alarm. And it needs to make sure that it satisfies your physical requirements, whatever they might be. If it's freezing, you're not going to be able to do the work. If it's too hot or too cold, or you don't have a way to, go use the bathroom or things like that. But once those minimum viable environment conditions are met, you have your established floor. When you move into the work, you kind of have a tendency to forget about the entirety of that floor. You are able to then bring in the mindset of play from the first episode this week that we talked about. And the curiosity kind of takes in, and as you loosen your grip on the outcome, the environment sort of disappears into the background of stuff that allows the work to go. That time dilation that we talked about, the days it lasted forever, it's not nostalgia. That's what flow feels like from the inside. It's proof that the environment has successfully done its job, and its job was to essentially get out of the way. there's things that your environment can and can't do. It clearly can't do the work for you, and it can't really replace the mindset, although it can help if you massage it a little. It can't make you care about something you don't care about. But what the environment can do is remove obstacles between you and the place where your best work becomes possible. And as a craftsman, your responsibility is to sort of build those minimum conditions and then forget them. You want to make sure that you've set your environment to be productive and then work in it. Dismiss those conditions so that you can then go about the work. It's not a destination. You're not building a workshop as the goal. It's the work that the workshop enables, right? It's that threshold environment that once you cross it, you've moved into the work. So for today, I want you to go back to that memory. Go back to that place where you were, really successful at kind of being fully enmeshed in the moment, and write down some of the conditions that were actually present. Maybe not the perfect ones, but the real ones. What was there? What kind of made it happen? What allowed the work to start? And as we go through the remaining episodes of this week, we'll talk a little bit more about ways to not only support those, but elevate them so that you may be able to start at a higher level of engagement or enmeshment in the work when you go.
The views represented in this podcast are those of the speaker alone and are not representative of any grand or subordinate lodge.
Hi, Brian here. I wanted to thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you have any suggestions or guidance for further episodes you'd like to see or hear, whatever the case may be, please don't hesitate to reach out to me at amasonswork.com, and we will try and incorporate your suggestions into a future recording. Thanks.
Freemasonry teaches us that the true work is within, a lifelong journey of reflection, discipline, and discovery. At A Mason's Work, we help Masons bring out their best selves through meaningful self-inquiry and symbolic practice. From personal reflection to lodge engagement, we offer tools that turn symbols into action. Visit us at amasonswork.com. The work is within. The time is now.